you know has ever experienced name-calling or harassment because of their race, ethnicity, religion, or sexuality?
Stand up if you or someone close to you has ever called someone names or discriminated against them because of their race, ethnicity, religion, or sexuality.
Stand up if you or someone you care about has ever experienced a sense of pride because of their racial, ethnic, religious, or sexual identity.
Stand up if you or someone close to you practices specific cultural traditions related to their race, ethnicity, or religion.
Please stand up if you received a lollipop when you arrived today.
3 minutes to respond. So I'm going to first start off with you. What civil rights struggles have you or your community experienced?
Hello everyone, Sadiq Lag from the community. Specifically, I can't pinpoint specific aspect, but there's a lot that I had witnessed or I had about it recently. About many of you heard about it.
Most of our French Canadians do not speak the language, myself included. My 4 children do not speak French. Two of them do because they studied in France. So what I could have taught them for nothing, I paid for dearly, which is unfortunate, but that's the way it was. We did not teach our children how to speak French, and we did not insist upon them speaking the language, which today is a big regret amongst all of us. It is my biggest regret in life because I do wish that all my children spoke French. The discrimination today is not like it used to be by far. I didn't experience too much of that because growing up I went to a French school, a Catholic school, where everybody was dressed alike, everybody spoke the same language, and that school was founded because the French kids in the public schools were not treated well at all. And a gentleman by the name of Father Druin came to Lewiston back in the 1930s and founded St. Peter's and Paul's School for the French Canadian kids who were here by the hundreds, but not treated well at all. So that's the school I went to. I was one of 5 children. And my father died when we were all very, very young. I was just 4.5 years old. So we grew up very poor without much at all. And so it was thanks to this Father Druin that we were able to get an education in these French Catholic schools. And we never felt the prejudice that all of our friends felt in the public school system. And so today, this community, if you look around, 70% of the population back in the early 1900s, 1920s, 30s, 70% of the Lewiston population was French Canadian. And that's hard to believe, but we are really the ones that built this community. You can see it in the architecture, you can hear it on the streets when you hear the language, you can see it in the foods, creton, tourtière, you know, these are all French Canadian dishes. You hear it in the music, and so we've had a very, very big influence here in the community and throughout the New England states, because not only did many settle in Lewiston-Auburn, but they settled in many communities throughout Maine. But everywhere there was that prejudice. Even, oops, thank you.
Big round of applause. Next we have Tanya, long-term resident of Lewiston-Auburn, graduate of Lewiston High School and CMCC, and current student at USM. What civil rights struggles have you or your community experienced, Tanya?
Well, hello everyone, first of all. I first wanted to say that I identify as an African American woman, and I think that those three things go together, and I feel strongly about being identified and recognized as that. I think historically, you guys saw just based off the video and a lot of things that we talked about today, a lot of the struggles that African American people have gone through historically. I can only speak personally on the last 40 years. 40, that's how old I am. For all of you that wanted to know. But really, I think the biggest thing that I've struggled with is the feeling of being invisible. It was really prominent when I was younger. I was born into a family. My mom was white and my dad was black, but my mom married a white man, so I had 2 white parents that raised me, and it was me and my sister and 6 other white siblings. And we often were overlooked as if we were a part of somebody else's family. We also had the assumption of class. You know, I think that was probably the biggest thing that bothered me. It was like around Christmas time, I can remember being in public school in like 4th or 5th grade, and guidance counselor calling me to the office, and I didn't know why, and went to the office, and she said, we just want to make sure that your family has enough food for the holidays, and that you and your sister have winter coats. And I was so confused, and I remember going home and I said, why would she ask us that, but not our siblings, our older siblings that were also in the school? And my sister said, well, because we're black. And I remember saying, well, what does that have to do with anything? Because I was naive, I didn't get it. And my mom sat us down and she kind of just really talked about that there's an assumption that when you're black, you're poor, you're on some sort of social service, and you can't do for yourself, you can't provide for yourself. And that type of assumption carried on, and I still see some of it today, but I think that we've made leaps and bounds and things like this, that what we're doing today makes it better. But I think that feeling of people looking past you, over you, or making assumptions and stereotypes based off of what you look like was probably the biggest plight that I personally can speak upon. Thank you.
All right, so we have Sydney from EL. Sydney, what civil rights struggles have you or your community experienced?
I am I'm French Canadian, and a big part of my family is French Canadian, and it's pretty obvious that nowadays there isn't really that much of a stigma towards it anymore. But a part of my family, my dad's new wife, my stepmother, her family is not French at all, and they look down on me for being French. They think that, well, they're like, I think they're some kind of European something. I don't know what they are, but they're not French, not even a little bit, not French Canadian at all. And they think that being French Canadian is not a good thing. And I don't talk about it with them because I know that they don't like it. And it's kind of odd to think that there's still a lot of people out there who don't like it, because it's not, half this community is French Canadian, and there's still so much stigma towards it, and I never really understood it. I don't know why people would not like me for something that I didn't get to choose to be. And I know that a lot of people can relate to that. And that's it.
So does anyone in the audience maybe have questions on what the panelists had to say? Yes, Michelle.
But I want others to go first because I always go first. So is there anybody else with their hand up?
Yeah, over there.
So I can't remember your name. Second woman on the right. Yes, you.
Me?
No, not Sydney.
Tanya?
Tanya.
Oh, okay.
When you were in high school, what was it like for you? Like, because you grew up in this area, what was it like?
It was hard. It was very difficult. I started high school at Everett-Little. I did half of my sophomore year there. I remember begging my parents during Christmas vacation, begging, sobbing, please, I can't go to school there. It wasn't how I was treated from teachers and other faculty members. It was the fact that there were 3 other people that looked like me, and 2 of them I was related to. So I wanted to go to Lewiston where there was like 20, which felt like a lot at that time. I kind of didn't want to continue to go into a classroom and have to take that big cleansing breath before you walk in, because you know you're going to be the only non-white person in that classroom. February was really tough all the time because it was the Black History Month, and then you get all the questions about, well, what were slaves like? I'm like, wow, I'm 16. I have no idea. But that's the kind of questions you got. So you kind of knew, like, February is a month that I now, as an African American mother, celebrate and I look forward to. Then I was like, oh God, I gotta go to school and answer all these questions that I don't know based upon what I look like. So it was really difficult, some of the hardest years of my life, but somehow I squeaked by and made it through.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Rukia?
I have a question for you. As kind of a child, or I guess the second generation of a Franco-American family, is that correct? Okay. What similarities and differences do you see with the upcoming immigrants to Somali communities and even other African immigrants that have come to Lewiston?
That's a very good question. Very many similarities. In fact, when I was at the Franco Center, I could relate to everything that was going on with the immigration process, because our people went through the same thing, so much so. You know, most of your people came here not knowing the language, not much money, no place to live, and that's how the Francos came, the same way. And so I felt it was important to open the doors of the center, and we were the first ones to have a great big welcoming ceremony for the Somali community, because we knew what they were going through, and the place was filled to capacity, the walls were bulging, and we were very proud and happy to be the ones to welcome the Somalians, because we came from where they came from.
Any other questions? Say what's hard.
The governor of, isn't the governor of Auburn, or that said the mayor? The Lewiston mayor, yeah. What did he say, like?
You mean recent one or the previous?
The one that said something like
Yeah, the 2001, I don't know the exact quote, maybe Michelle can help me out, but he said something on the line about the Somali people, that they shouldn't come here to the city, they are not welcome, and they should stay wherever they are, or they should go back. He said something along that line. But the recent, McDonald just recently, I think it was early this year or late to the last year, I don't know exactly, he said that this Somali population, they should leave their culture at the door when they are coming. They shouldn't kind of enforce, although there's nobody who enforce his culture to other people. He said that the Somali population, they should leave their culture, and I think the religious beliefs, something like that, at the door. And that just was something really, a really big issue. Somebody who is who has a big office in the community to say something like that.
Alright, so we're gonna move on. Next question. What? Alright. We're gonna start with Sydney. What has helped to improve the challenges, and what actions do you encourage others to take to overcome challenges to civil rights? You want me to repeat that?
Yeah.
Alright. What has helped to improve the challenges, and what actions do you encourage others to take in order to overcome challenges for civil rights?
Okay, so the kind of things that the steps you should take to kind of overcome that, at least personally, is to be proud of where you come from. Don't try to cover it up, because then you're kind of giving them what they want, and that's never something you should do. And I think it's gotten a lot better, like especially with like stigma towards Franco-Americans. It's not around that much anymore, because people have kind of come to accept that they came here and they made their own way when they came here, because they didn't get any breaks. No one wanted them here, so they didn't get anything handed to them. And I see that again with all the Somali people that are here. They're not getting anything handed to them, and people are not always the nicest towards them. It's not just the nicest. They're mean, and it's not okay. And I see them overcoming that by not denying their culture, just like the Franco-American people did. And it's really nice, and I think that it's working out.
Tanya, what has helped to improve the challenges, and what actions do you encourage others to take to overcome challenges to civil rights?
I think events like this have been very helpful in overcoming a lot of the challenges that we faced. I think that being open and honest and listening to other people, especially people that don't look like you or don't sound like you, and understanding, I think even just with a very small conversation, I think what we have come out of it is an understanding or perspective that we didn't realize was there. I think that one of the things that we can do to increase that level of understanding even more is to continue to educate ourselves, whether it be, not just in high school or in college. After that, educate yourselves for, with people in your own environment and people that are in your communities, and then take that and help teach other people. I think for me personally, educating my mind to prevent the verbalization of a harsh tongue was something that was very difficult, but it's necessary, because we can't communicate with each other if we're coming from a place of aggression. So the only way to overcome aggression is to educate one another and actively listen.
All right, Frida, same question.
Well, certainly I think in order to avoid future discrimination is to speak up and to be involved in the community. I think the French community has come a very, very long way. Most Canadian immigrants were hardworking, faith-filled, family-oriented, really strong work ethics, and that's why we've come such a long way. I think for other immigrants coming here, that's important that they feel the same way and they do the same things, that they get involved, that they defend one another. If anybody speaks up against another person of a different race, then it's up to you to stand up and say, listen, you're no better than they are. I mean, you've got to stand up for one another and work together as a team. I think being here today is a good step towards community and building relationships with one another, and not to look down upon others, because you don't know their story, really. If you think of the hardships that they've gone through and why they came here in the first place, you may think differently about how you want to treat them, because if you had been in that same situation, you may very well want to let the people know that you didn't have it so easy where you came from, and you're trying to build a new life for yourself, for your families, and they need to understand that and to stop putting you down for who you are, because they haven't walked in your steps, and until they do, they may not treat you the way they should. But anyways, through hard work and families sticking together, working together, I think that in 10 or 20 years, this community will be harmonized, things will be running smoothly, everybody will probably be looking back saying, why did we give everybody such a hard time? Because we really are all created equal, and that's how it should be. And when you see things like you saw on the film, you know, the Ku Klux Klan, believe it or not, they used to do the same thing here in this community, Lewiston-Auburn, towards the French Canadian Catholics. The Ku Klux Klan used to burn down their businesses. You'd see crosses on their front lawns. We were frightened to death. You'd think that this only exists in the South, but it did not. It existed right here in our own community. So we've come a very, very long way, and I think by working together and having the strength to help one another and believe in the future and in ourselves, that we will probably all live together smoothly down the road.
Same question.
Alright, as my other panelists said, education is a big issue about this topic. Once Muhammad Gandhi says, be the change that you like to see in the world. So if somebody tells you something about backwards or discriminate against your religious or your culture or your gender, you have to speak up and say about what you believe in and what you are all about. So education is a big issue. And people are not born with hatred in their heart. Once Nelson Mandela also said, they are not born hatred inside their heart. It is the environment that makes all this up. So if we do something like this, if we educate people, and if we tell more about ourselves, I think this gap and this stigma, it will decrease. And also, if we talk about this topic, the race topic, it's kind of stigma, not lately, but it has been a stigma for the most part of the previous generation. So if people talk about in their dinner table, at the restaurant, in the whatever they are doing, I think this gap, it can be decreased and it can get closer and closer.
Alright, we're going to take a couple questions before we wrap up the panel. So if you have any questions, just raise your hand. Yeah.
Don't speak all at once.
Michelle?
I have a question for Sadiq, which I think is very related to education and our power to educate each other. I don't know if you remember, a couple years ago in an ethics class, we were discussing equality and discrimination and what had been going on in Lewiston-Auburn at the time. And I can't remember what the issue was, but we ended up focusing a few classes on Somalis living in Lewiston, living in Auburn. And at one point, one of the students in the class said, if things are so difficult for them here, why don't they just go back to the refugee camps? How bad can they be? And you didn't get at all angry. You responded to her. Would you be willing to tell us how you responded to her? Because I think it was so powerful.
Yeah, there was a small discussion in our class, in our ethics class. So this classmate of mine asked me the same question that Michelle was asking, and she said, why can't people stay at the refugee camp if this environment is not treating them well? So think about yourself being in a 500,000 population kind of in a camp whereby the water is really you don't get enough water, leave alone to take a shower and with all of your basic needs, but to drink. And also there's a food scarcity. You're only given, I think now it's twice a month, depending on your family, how much is your family. So it's like 5 kg of maize, same 25 kgs of beans, depending on with the population of your family. So the young lady didn't know much about the situation at the refugee camp. So I explained to her how the hardship those people who are going through day in, day out, live alone. I mean, at the refugee camp, the safety kind of is not that bad since it's in Kenya. But in terms of the other needs, all the basic needs, it is really down to the ground. There's no much thing that can be said about the refugee camp in Kenya. So I explained to her how the hardship and the tough the situation were there. People were really suffering from the daily situation over there. I don't know about the last part, but the thing that she didn't know about it, she just only heard about refugee camp. She doesn't know how the situation bad is, how people are suffering, and all those things. So I explained to her all the situation people are going through, and she understood.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I just had a comment in regards to the KKK. There were more KK members in the state of Maine than there was in Mississippi. So that, yeah, it's a little, that's a bit of a wow factor, but it's true.
And I think, I'm not sure of the exact details, but just to kind of piggyback on that, in 2001, in response to that letter, I think a person from a white supremacist group tried to come up and start a movement.
They did.
They came and they had a rally. But the people in Lewiston-Auburn kind of got together and fought back against it and said, we don't want that here. You know, they take that somewhere else. We don't want it here in Maine.
They organized the Many in One Coalition.
Yes.
Which the White Church of the Supreme Church of the Creator, I think was the name of the group that came. They organized a rally in January of 2003. A diverse group of people in Lewiston-Auburn organized the Many in One Coalition. We held our rally on the same day. We had over 4,000 people. They had a little fewer than 40, and 2/3 of them were police officers who had to cover the rally to make sure the World Church of the Creator.
So, no questions? Alright, so could we get a big round of applause?